All right, so we are live. Welcome to everyone who's joined us. We are just a couple minutes early, so I'm going to wait so that people can join us. If you join us, if someone will just say, I can hear you, that always makes me feel better. So we've had a lot of trouble with our sound, or we did at the beginning. We've actually been doing pretty well. So I am gonna wait till a live person out there tells me they can hear us. I see we have two people that have joined us. Again, if just one of you will let me know you can hear us, that would be so awesome. Yay, thank you. Teresa said that she can hear us. That is great. And Sue can hear us. Hooray. So again, we're just going to give people a couple minutes to join. I do want to say, since I talked to you guys last, that I got a haircut, and that was the most amazing thing ever that I can remember during this entire pandemic. And a shout out to my beautician, uh, Jeannie, for she has just worked her tail off this week trying to get people in and give and color hair and cut hair and serve all of her all of her clients. And so very excited to get a haircut after, I believe, 14 weeks. That was a long stretch. So okay, get about 30 seconds and then we'll get started. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and begin. First thing, I just wanted to make a note that tonight you'll notice that I am wearing black, and so is my partner, Andrea, that you'll meet in just a few minutes. And we're wearing black because today was declared, to get this right here, it was an educator blackout, and this was sponsored by Jefferson County Teacher Association, and they asked for all teachers across the state to wear black, just as to show solidarity to our students, to our fellow educators, and to our families, and all people of color who are in our state and across our nation. And so I just wanted to point that out, why we both are wearing black today, that it was for a specific reason. So tonight I had promised you that I was going to conduct my own job interview for the position of state representative for District 27. And the reason I chose to do this was because we are so limited during this COVID-19 health crisis of being able to get information out to not only to potential supporters, but also just to be able to have that side-by-side comparison of candidates. And this primary is very important because we want to make sure as a Democratic Party that we pick the very best candidate to be our Democratic nominee, who will be most suited to go and run against Nancy Tate in order to defeat her in November in the election. And so I just want to make sure that all the constituents in District 27 have the opportunity to get as much information as possible and be able to look at myself and my opponent side by side. And so tonight I'm going to be sharing information about myself personally, professionally, pertaining to my campaign, and then any information that I know about my opponent, Brian Chisholm, I will also share. And this information will be things that he has shared about himself through Facebook, through his campaign website, maybe through newspaper articles or things that are just public knowledge because they're out there. It's public information. And so that's kind of how it's going to roll tonight. And but before we do that, I am going to introduce another just wonderful teammate that's on my campaign team, and her name is Andrea Bishop. And I have known Andrea since she was in high school. She was also another student of my husband's when I was at the elementary school and he was at the high school. And I think he was also her academic team coach. And she was our babysitter of our children for several years while she was in high school. And she's just remained someone that's, just a big part of our family. And so she has been a vital part of my campaign. And so Andrea is going to talk to you about the absentee ballots and the postcards that most of you all are receiving in the mail.
Thank you, Stacy. Hi, guys. So you all should have already or will very soon be receiving a fancy little postcard in the mail. My Vanna White skills here are showing. So what this does is just reminds you to request your absentee ballot if you haven't done so already. Big reminder, June 15th is the last day that you can request your absentee ballot. That's only 11 days away, so make sure if you are planning to vote this way that you go ahead and take care of that absentee ballot ASAP. It's super easy, and the directions are on the back of that postcard, but it's govoteky.com. Okay, super easy. Did mine earlier this week, so I'm waiting to get mine in the mail. So while I'm waiting for mine to arrive, I have here what the actual ballot will look like. This is Stacy's ballot that she's letting me use for tonight. You'll know it's your absentee ballot because it's very large. That's what it tells you it is. And then you will open up your envelope of goodies here, okay? So I'm going to kind of go through what will be in the envelope so you know what to do, so you know how to appropriately fill things out. Because the biggest thing are 2 envelopes, which means 2 signatures. I'll repeat that a couple of times. Okay. The papers that you will receive, there'll be 2 papers. One is just directions, really, really clear step-by-step directions about how to mark the ballot, about how to seal the ballot. Stacy mentioned the COVID-19 health crisis, so some people don't even feel comfortable licking envelopes. It reminds you can use a damp cloth to take care of that. They've really thought of every detail to try to make this as smooth as possible. So you have your directions. In addition to your directions, you have your actual ballot. Okay, so this will have your presidential nominee, your United States Senator nominee, and your state representative for District 27, okay, where you're going to mark Stacy Crossland. Once you have marked this ballot, you will then put it inside this envelope. This is what they call the inner, sorry, I keep going to the wrong side, the inner envelope, okay? On the back of the inner envelope, there's a highlighted place where you would have to sign your name. If for some reason you cannot sign your name, you have to leave a mark, whether from a physical disability or whatever. That is the case where you will need witnesses and for people to read the rest of the information. If you can just sign, then you do not, correct me if I'm wrong, you do not need the witnesses. That's kind of a little confusing, so we want to make sure that was super clear for you guys today. You also don't rip anything off, okay? You will put your ballot inside this lovely envelope, okay? Seal it with that damp cloth again. And then there is the outer envelope that is already, the postage is paid, it's already addressed. All you have to do is then slip your kind of more business-like looking envelope inside that. Once it's sealed, seal this one and sign it. Oops, I have it upside down, sorry. Okay, so 2 signatures for the 2 envelopes, 1 signature on each envelope. You'll notice when you fill out the request for your absentee ballot, it has that like match signature. So that's all they're doing. They're matching it to the signature on your driver's license to try to ensure that this is as valid of a process as possible. So that's just kind of your reminder. Again, June 15th is the last day that you can request that absentee ballot, and then you have to have the envelope postmarked by June 23rd for it to count in the primaries. So those are the 2 dates that you need to know right now. June 15th to request the ballot, June 23rd that has to be postmarked. Before I let Stacy come back on and start her job interview, well, first, did I forget anything, Stacy?
Just mentioned that they can still get an appointment.
Oh, right.
Up to the 22nd.
And you can still get an appointment to vote in person up till the 22nd. You can still go to vote the day of the 23rd. And when you mail your ballot in, you can choose to mail it or you can choose to drop it off at the county clerk's office. Okay, sorry, forgot one of my points. Again, before I let Stacy get on here and conduct her interview of why she deserves your vote, why she is the best candidate, I figured an interview calls for a letter of recommendation. So, Stacy mentioned I have been fortunate enough to know this family since I was 16 years old. I have personally seen their kindness time and time again. But what's probably more important to say is sort of my experience with voting. I come from a family where politics is not worth talking about because politicians are corrupt. They're either out for money or out for a better position or both. And I set out as a little 18-year-old idyllic, I'm going to change the world. And as I've grown, now I'm 31, I have my own child. I understand that things don't always work as ideally as we want them to. I do see some of the corruption. And I just say this from the bottom of my heart. This is someone who wants to make a difference in a community. This is not someone after a better job, a more prominent position in government. This is someone who wants to make a difference. As an educator, as a mother, just like I am, I know that she represents the needs that people like you and I have on a day-to-day basis. So before I let her talk, I see that someone made a comment, what does it look like when it comes in? I assume you mean the ballot envelope. So again, this is what that envelope looks like. Okay, so it says absentee ballot really, really big, and then it has all those goodies that I showed you. So if you still have any questions or concerns, feel free to send Stacy a private message through this page, and one of us can walk you through that again if any of that was confusing. Okay, I hope I helped, Nick. All right, so once again, if you are tired of people who are out to do their own pet projects in Washington or in Frankfurt or wherever, this is someone who doesn't care about pet projects. She cares about people. And that's what I think we need at Frankfurt. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. I appreciate that very much. And so now we are going to move forward and we are going to start our job interview. So what I did when I started preparing for this tonight is I just thought of what questions would be on a job interview and what traits are we looking for and what experiences would I be looking for in a candidate to be able to represent our entire community, which is very diverse, and be able to have the skill sets to go to Frankfurt and be a successful and effective legislator. So the first thing was, what is your personal and professional experiences? That's a question I think would be asked in a job interview. So I'm going to start with mine. I am 51 years old and I have 27 years experience in public education. I have been married for 28 years and my husband and I have 3 children together. We're homeowners. And also we have at this time 2 children that are currently in college, and we have a son in high school who will be attending college very shortly. Now, my opponent, Brian Chisholm, he is 26 years old. He is a graduate of Western Kentucky University, which is also the university I graduated from, but he has been out of college for 3.5 years. Right now, he is 26 years old. I'm not trying to put him down, but he's single, doesn't have any children yet. For his work experience that I've been able to put together over the past 3.5 years, Brian's worked for 4 different companies. 3 of those were located in Bowling Green, and one of the companies that he's currently working for is an online company that has their headquarters based out of state. One more thing that I think is important, just personally, that I want to share, which has an effect on how my view on healthcare, is that in the past 28 years, our family has suffered two pretty major health crises. The first one was when our oldest son was born, and he was born with a diaphragmatic hernia, which it was a very life-threatening birth defect, and so he had to be operated on immediately, almost immediately after he was born. He spent 3 months, the first 3 months of his life, in the hospital. And then the first 4 years of his life was kind of back and forth and lots of hospitalizations, couple minor surgeries. And so you can only imagine the hospital bills that racked up from that. We always joked and said he was our $1 million baby. The second major health, we've had other things, of course, with children, broken arms, things like that, the normal things. But another major incident was when my husband had an unexpected heart attack in his early 40s. And I say it's unexpected because he was probably one of the last people anyone would expect to have a heart attack. Didn't have any of those underlying factors of high blood pressure, high cholesterol, or even being overweight. But he did have a heart attack, and again, from this point on, he's considered a person with heart issues, and so that has very much. Has affected my view of how important healthcare is, and that every Kentuckian deserves to have affordable health care and quality health care, because both of those things that I mentioned could have easily bankrupted my family. If my husband and I were not fortunate enough to work for the school system in which we have dependable health care and quality health care, if I had been a small business owner or worked for a small company that did not provide insurance to me, both of those things could have been enough to put us under financially. And so I just think that that's a very important thing to know of where I come from when it comes to the issue of healthcare. So that is kind of important things about both of our experiences. The second thing that I thought was very important that I think that someone would want to know is about how have I demonstrated my leadership skills? Not potential leadership, but actually demonstrated it. And so I had a couple key points here. First, I was an elementary school guidance counselor at Flaherty Elementary for 13 years. And so, being the guidance counselor, I was part of the administrative team. So, I worked hand in hand with the principal. At one time, we did have an assistant principal and then family resource to organize and make important decisions about the school. And that, of course, was a leadership position. Also, I am one of the original founders for a group called Meade County Schools United, and that is a group of approximately 700 former and current employees of Meade County Schools, and some of them are also retired, and it's both classified and certified. So that's teachers, and then that's also our paraprofessionals, bus drivers, anyone that's employed with Meade County Schools. And that group was formed so that we could easily inform people, keep people updated on the pension crisis in Frankfort and the funding crisis in Frankfurt for education, and so that we could all be on the same page and that we could quickly coordinate together and effectively have our voices heard at Frankfurt. Another group that I serve in a leadership position is our local Meade County Education Association. I am currently the local president of MCEA, and also this year is our first time that we've had a complete leadership team, and that was one of the stipulations that I said that I would serve as president only if I had a solid team, that I wasn't going to go solo. And so we have a vice president, secretary, a treasurer, and just this year I feel like that we have accomplished as a leadership team a lot of great things for our community. One thing that we were able to do was we were able to give $250 scholarships to future educators for in our graduating class at Meade County. And then secondly, when we were able to help our community during this crisis, we decided to dip into our funds and we awarded eight, we called them COVID-19 scholarships, to eight different families that were nominated by our membership that were really struggling to make ends meet at the very beginning of this pandemic, because unemployment had not kicked in, some of the food subsidies had not kicked in, and so we were able to award these $200 scholarships to these families for them to use to buy food or to pay bills. And so that's some of the things that, again, in my leadership team, we were able to accomplish. Now, when I look at my opponent, um, one thing that he does mention a lot that is leadership is he served 1 year as Kentucky's FFA president while he was in college. Now, the only thing that I like to note about that is that was in college. That has not been since he has graduated and actually, entered the workforce and, as we say, adulting. And so that is a great accomplishment, but it was done during college. And the one thing that's recent that I do want to congratulate him on is that he was recently selected to serve, and I want to make sure I get the name right, on Western Kentucky University's Young Alumni Council. And so in order to be on this council, you have to be someone who has graduated within the last 10 years, from Western Kentucky University. And so since he graduated 3.5 years ago, he's a perfect candidate for this position, and I wish him well on that. All right, so moving on. The next thing that I think would be important for someone who wants to be an elected official and serve their community is their community involvement. And so I've had many different ways that I have been involved with the community over the years. Some of them have been spurred because of my children. Whatever your children are busy in, you're kind of running and delivering them and picking them up and then helping to fundraise. But I wanted to talk about, in addition to being a counselor or a teacher, I have done many things extracurricular. Some paid, most not. And but that's because I thought it was important to give children as many opportunities as possible, and many things that they learn that's important during K through 12 don't happen in the classroom. They happen outside of the classroom. And so some of the things that I have done is I coached and I've sponsored numerous youth organizations. Those include, I've been a cheerleading coach. I was a sponsor of Youth in Charge, which was a leadership group that promoted drug, alcohol, and tobacco-free life. And those were high school students that actually went in. I trained them with Bev Morrison, and they would go in and mentor middle school students. Let's see, I also was an academic team coach for many, many years. I also was a KYA, Kentucky Youth Assembly, sponsor for Flaherty Elementary. And so I took sixth graders every year to a conference where they learned about their government and they learned how laws are crafted and proposed and how they're passed. And then finally, I've also, for several years, because my youngest son was in Cub Scouts, I was a Cub Scout den leader. And I stuck with the same group of boys from first grade all the way to fifth grade until they passed over into Boy Scouts. During this pandemic, as community service, I really was missing my students, and as a teacher, that I had a big hole. I just had a gap, this big hole of where I'm used to helping people and serving my students, and so I kept on looking for ways to help our community while I wasn't able to see my students and be in that classroom. So one thing that my children and I volunteered to do is we delivered food boxes from Feeding Across America to families in our district who either did not have transportation to come pick them up on their own, or were homebound, or were actually had tested positive for COVID-19 and were being quarantined and couldn't leave their house. And so for the past 2 months, we have spent, it's taken us about several hours because we load up our van with these boxes and go out and deliver these food boxes in the community. And that has been very rewarding. Not actually usually don't see the people I deliver them to because we're not supposed to have contacts. So you drop it off at the porch, you knock on it, and then you run away. But again, it just really it filled that gap for me of wanting to help people. Um, for my opponent, I can't really speak on community involvement, and I'm not saying he doesn't have any. I'm just saying that's not something that's been put out there publicly that I'm able to share. And so that's something that if you want to know, that would be perfectly fine. That that you might reach out and ask for that information. Okay, so we're going to move on to communication with constituents. I feel like if someone's going to be an effective legislator, they have to have superb communication skills, and they have to really work at communicating with voters, with constituents, and with everyone in order to do a good job and to be effective. And so I just want to talk a little bit about how we have worked to communicate our message and get our message out as a campaign team. We have used all kinds of outlets. We have used radio, we have used newspaper, we have used Facebook, and we've also done direct mailings. To anyone that we thought would be a potential supporter. Now, a lot of those things are very expensive, and so we maybe weren't able to do a mailing to every single registered Democrat in the district, but we did very focused ones that we felt were going to be the most beneficial and to get to reach the people we felt like were going to actually show up at the polls. We created a very informative website. And on this website, if you haven't been there, it's stacycrosslandforkentucky.com. And on this website, there's lots and lots of information about me, about my background, and also about my positions, actual, positions, which center around three main topics, which is education, healthcare, and what do we have? Oops, I'm sorry. So we have education, healthcare, and tax policy. So those are my three cornerstone concerns. And you can go to my website and actually see, what I believe about those topics. I've also accepted any and all invitations to speak to anyone who wants to listen to me. I was invited by the Radcliffe Small Business Association to participate in their candidate forum. I also was invited by I want to get the name correct, the Democratic Women's Club of Hardin County. To also speak through a Zoom meeting to their membership. And then I've also I've done a couple interviews with Meade County Local, which is a lot of people through Facebook are part of this group. And again, it just posts things all about Meade County. I've also invested time to fill out as many online surveys that I can, such as Ballotpedia, Kentuckians for the Commonwealth, and People Over Politics. Again, just trying to get information out there so that when people are deciding who they want to vote for, they actually can go to these places and read and understand, see if my beliefs are aligned with theirs. Now, when I look at my communication with constituents when it comes to my opponent, he has used a lot of the same media similar to our campaign. However, the purpose of a lot of his communications have been solely just to get his name out and get that name recognition. And, I feel like the one thing that is lacking with his communication is that he lacks lots of details, specific details about his work experience and about his position on all kinds of issues that are important to people in District 27. And then I'm going to end with with fiscal responsibility. The state budget in Kentucky has a much bigger impact on your daily life than anything that happens at the federal level. Um, I teach an education class for students who want to be educators, and we talk a lot about funding and where funding comes for education, where are the different pieces. And state funding is 40 to 45% of our education budget in this nation. And so again, so many programs and so many things are provided through the dollars in our state budget. And so I think that when you vote for someone, you want to make sure that they are very fiscally responsible. On a personal note, to look at my personal finances, my husband and I paid off our home 2 years ago. And this was a goal that we set, and we made sacrifices to do this because our goal was to pay our house off before our children, our oldest son went off to college. Because we thought if we could have that house payment, not have a house payment, then we would be able to help him to possibly not, come out of college with an extreme amount of debt. And so we almost made that goal. We missed it by a year, and but we did. We were lucky enough, and we feel so grateful to actually be homeowners and no longer have a mortgage. We've always tried to be responsible with our money and tried not to and live within our means and not to accumulate large sums of debt. When it comes to my campaign, that philosophy transferred over to my campaign. And we decided from the very beginning that we were going to be a pay as we go campaign. And some candidates don't do that. A lot of candidates will start off by borrowing a significant amount of money to run for office, and I just refuse to do that. And so we've ran I feel, a very, very transparent campaign where I have involved my supporters in the decisions being made and how we're spending their money. And each time that we felt like as a campaign that we needed something, we would make up a proposal. We would hop online and share with these are the things at this moment in our campaign that we feel like that we need in order to be successful. And then we would raise the money. And every time that we have gone out and asked for money, we have received that money. And so that has absolutely been amazing. For my opponent, for Brian Chisholm, I the only way that I can talk about his fiscal responsibility is just by looking at the 30-day pre-primary campaign fundraising report. So 30 days before the primary, all candidates had to report what money they have raised and how they've spent their money and how much money they have remaining. And so I just want to take a couple of minutes to just kind of do a side-by-side comparison. And this is public knowledge, so Brian knows this information about me, and I know information about his campaign, and I just wanted to compare the two. Starting out in our campaign, we have, since I declared in January that I was running, I have received 48 donations from 41 separate donors. So some people have given more than once, and we have raised a total of $2,430. Now, in that, when you do the math, our average donations are about $50. So for people that give money to my campaign, this has been a very, very much a grassroots campaign, and the average donation is around $50. Now, in comparison, in Brian's campaign, he's had 74 donations totaling approximately $26,500. His average donation is more around $360. Now, when we look down a little more specifically, because when you report this, you have to itemize, and you have to say how many people gave over $100 to your campaign and how many gave under $100. So in my campaign, only 3 donors out of the 41 donors gave over $100 to the campaign. The rest gave something underneath $100. But in Brian's campaign, he only had, out of the 74 donations, he only had 8 donors who gave under $100. So everyone else gave more than $100. And to be specific, the maximum amount that any individual can give for the primary is $2,000. And so he received 3 donations of $2,000, the maximum amount. He received 4 donations of $1,000, and he received 12 donations in the amount of $500. And so that's how our money kind of stacks up. Another thing is not just the amount of people who've given and the average amount, is where this money is coming from. In my campaign, 75% of the donations came from people living in District 27. The other fourth, of course, when you're running a primary, you have friends that you grew up with, college friends, and so a fourth of my money came from people who did not live in District 27, which would be expected, I would think. I also did invest $800 of my own money in my campaign, and that was more at the beginning because it was really important to get the campaign off the ground. And so there were some things that immediately I had to pay for, and I decided that I was, I could have treated that as a loan and tried to recoup it later, but I felt that $800 was something that was within my means and an appropriate amount. In comparison, well, my money came 75% from people who are in District 27. Approximately 60% of Brian's money has come from outside of District 27. A lot of that from the Bowling Green area. And his campaign also reported a debt of around $2,500. Now, I don't know if that's money that Brian spent himself and that he decided to treat as a loan and then later so he could be reimbursed by his campaign. I can't speak for that, but he did report a debt, whereas our campaign did not report a debt. And essentially he has spent $10,000 of his $26,000. So he is sitting right now on $16,000 that he can still use in the next 2.5 weeks leading up to the primary. So that is kind of the facts. And if I got anything wrong, feel free to correct me, and I will make sure I correct that, because I truly believe that politicians need to be honest and transparent, and I don't want to put anything out there that is not true. I do want to leave though, because this is called Straight Talk with Stacy, with a little bit of my own opinion. So I want you to know I'm transitioning here to more of an opinion. But the one thing that I feel deeply is I feel like constituents in District 27 deserve more than just countless campaign signs posted throughout the district. I think that they want more from a candidate other than just name recognition. I think they want to know things about that candidate and their positions. I also believe that constituents deserve a candidate who is not skilled in, and I don't know a better way to put this, politician ease. Someone that knows how to say the right things and how to avoid answering the difficult questions. I feel that our constituents deserve someone who will speak out, who will stand up when needed, and who will do everything to share my views on issues that are important, not only to me, but important to the families in Meade County, in Hardin County, and in District 27. And I feel like I truly believe that my campaign and myself, that we have worked diligently. We have worked diligently to run a transparent, an informative, and an honest campaign. And I think that we have made a solid case that I am the best choice to be the next Democratic nominee for state representative for House District 27, and the strongest candidate to run against Nancy Tate in the general election in November. So, one last thing, and this is in closing. I just want to prepare you guys of what the next 2.5 weeks may look like. Leading up to this primary, I've mentioned that my opponent has $16,000. And so he could very well, and probably will, bombard the newspaper and the radio and social media with paid ads, just bombard it with his campaign ads. And I am going to trust the constituents in Meade County to know that just because someone has more money to spend on their campaign does not mean that they have more support. I think that I've made a pretty good case that I have a lot of support in the community. I just did not have connections to people with deep pockets and who can write $2,000 checks. Would I accept a $2,000 check? Absolutely. I don't have any problem with that. But those are not the supporters of my campaign. And so someone who I have people that give me $10 a month, and that's a sacrifice for them, and I appreciate that, and I very much value that support. And so for someone to write $100 or $50 check, many of them, that is what is within their budget, and I appreciate that. And so I just want you guys to know that I am probably going to get outspent in the last 2.5 weeks. Not probably, I am. And so I just want you to keep in mind that that's just a matter of having more money, and does not necessarily mean that Brian has more support in this community. And the one thing that I did say at the very beginning of this campaign, that I truly believed that regular people, just like you and me, should not only be able to run for office, but they should be able to win. And I feel very confident that together that we are going to prove that on June 23rd when I win the election, the primary election on the Democratic ticket. So once again, thank you for spending your Thursday evening with me. This ran a little bit late. Let me ask Andrea, is there anything we forgot?
Just comments.
Oh, comments. I always forget comments. So let's see if we have anything. Let's see. I voted for you. Thank you so much, John. Michael, I appreciate that. Wonderful job, Andrea, of course. And let's see. We need to help Stacy get the word out. So please talk to your friends and family members about Stacy. Share her content on social media. She is the right choice for our district. Thank you for that, Dustin. And let us know what else we can do to help. So that's a great lead in. I had spoken about a phone bank, and I didn't forget about that. But one amazing thing happened this week. I was officially endorsed by KEA, which their political arm is called KEPAC. And so when I got that nomination, I was informed. I thought I'd get a couple $100s, but KPAC decided that they wanted to fully endorse me and give the maximum amount. So we have received $2,000. So that is amazing. That is, almost doubles our campaign fundraising. And so we kind of put the phone bank on the back burner, and we have been working very hard to decide as a team how we're going to use that $2,000 the most effectively leading up to the primary. And so at this time, I don't have anything, Teresa, specifically for you to do other than what Dustin said was talk me up in the community, talk to family, talk to coworkers, talk to friends, and then point them in direction if they want more information to our Facebook page and also to my website. And then if you could do that for me, would be priceless. All right, I have another question. Let's see here. If you were elected, what were your plans for the state pension? I absolutely believe that we owe to our public employees what has been promised. And so I do not support changing our public pension. I do believe that if the government does what it is supposed to do and pays their annual ARC payment, that our pension system will bounce back, because it wasn't that many years ago that it was fully funded. And so as long as they do not they make that full payment and they don't reach into it and use that money for something else, our pension system will bounce back. And so that is my position. Now, with the pandemic, is it going to be tight next year? Absolutely. And so, will people have to make sacrifices? Absolutely. And that is one reason why I think that this race is so vital. There are so many reasons that we want to make sure we have the right people in government serving in the General Assembly to make those tough decisions when it comes to which we're going to be a kind of a cash strapped state. And we need people who are open to new revenue and put everything on the table so that we can generate as much money as we can to meet the needs of our communities and the needs of our state. All right, plug our website. All right, so Trevor, I will do that. So my website is Stacy Crossland 4, that's the number 4, ky.com. So Stacy Crossland 4 ky.com. So that is our website. And at that website, again, there's lots of information, and then it will connect people back to our campaign, Facebook campaign page. It has all the videos that they can view, and links. And so it's a really good, they can make donations there. So it's a one-stop, one-page website, which I think is very easy to navigate. All right. You are welcome, Paul. I had to thank you for answering. And all right, so does anyone else have, oh, I have a tag on that website. There's also a tag for if you want to give a donation, and our donation is through Action Network. So in Action Network, like I said, it's a real easy process. It says click to contribute or make a contribution, and then it will work you through that. So, and I've had several people who have contacted me that did not want to give. They wanted to give cash or a check, and I've driven to their house and picked it up. So that's always an option also. All right, let's see if we have anything else. I think that is it. So again, thank you for spending your portion of your Thursday evening with me. If any other questions come up, feel free to message me and I will get back to you. If you want me to call you, just leave your phone number in the message, and if you'd rather talk in person. Have a wonderful evening, and we will see you for another Straight Talk with Stacy next week. Bye, guys.